Today we're going to talk about how important plants actually are to everything we do. And we're going to go a lot more in depth through this as we go through the course. But the reality is plants purify the air. They've created the air that we breathe. We make clothing out of them. We make medicines out of them. We build shelters out of them. They're obviously part of our food and drinks. They're responsible for the ecosystem of the entire planet. It's amazing to me how most people don't recognize how important plants are, and yet they form the foundation and the basis of everything that we do in our society. Are we their servants, or do they serve us? Because without plants, there's no life. But we do a lot of things to both breed them and to harm them. So if we are serving them, what do we do in return? What do we get in return? If they are serving us, maybe we should do some things in return. But in many cases, often what we do is we don't help them at all. We undervalue them. We have many people who don't even hardly see them in the world. There's lots of people who probably cannot tell you the difference between an oak and a maple, or corn and wheat. We destroy habitat. We reduce diversity. We plant crops in soils that cannot support them. We introduce animals, pests, diseases, and weeds as we do our activities. But the other thing is look at it from this way. We destroy the woods, maybe, and we build a crop land or a greenhouse, and we have created habitat for other plants. So we might hurt some plants in that process, but we are helping other plants in that same process. If we take that analogy a little bit further, we're helping all of these plants when we plant farmland and we care for them and we kill the weeds and we might irrigate them, or we build a little ecosystem as a garden in our front yard, or we landscape, right? But we destroy those as well. Once you have farmland or a landscape or a golf course or a public park, it eventually becomes its own ecosystem. And we often destroy those things as well so that we can build cities, we can fragment habitat. So we're constantly destroying things. Now, don't look at this as either good or bad, it just is. If you want to build a house, you have to destroy some things to build the house. I'm not saying don't build the house. I'm not saying don't have the farm or the park or the golf course or the greenhouse. What I'm saying is recognize that everything that we do destroys something else. In the process of creation, we are destroying something else. You destroy farmland, then you're destroying the ecosystem that farmland has. And as that happens, folks move to more city and urban areas, and people lose touch with nature. As we lose farms, as we lose greenhouses, people lose touch with nature all the time. I'll swipe this from the internet. This was New York City. New York City. Right around 1900. I don't remember where the website said it was, but I kind of want you to keep an eye on some of these tall buildings. So keep an eye on this building and this building right here, because you will be able to see those in just a moment. Because right here, swipe this off the internet also, this is New York City now. So it's almost the exact same spot. There's that first building, there's that second building. What happened? Do you think any of the inhabitants of New York City know what sheep look like? I mean, yeah, okay, they probably actually do know what sheep look like. But how far would these people need to go to see a sheep? Do they understand what goes into the production of sheep? Take it a little bit further. Yeah, they probably know what corn looks like. Do they have any idea what it takes to produce corn? Or if we look at this little turf area over here, what it takes to manage that turf, they probably don't have any idea about those sorts of things. It's not just large cities that happens. This is Columbus. This is the north end of Columbus while I-270 is being built. Look at all the farmland. So much farmland. It was basically a freeway in the middle of nowhere, apparently. This is now, right? So this area right here, where I've circled with the red pen, that is that exact same intersection. What happened to the farmland? It's disappeared. The plants have problems, though. Whether they are natural plants or crop plants, they can't speak for themselves. This flower isn't cute and cuddly. Yes, it's very pretty, but it's not cute and cuddly. It doesn't bleed if we cut it. So we need people to advocate for the plants. Everybody goes, oh, bamboo, bamboo, bamboo. What do we have bamboo for? And that didn't show up quite so well. Pandas. Bamboo feeds pandas. Pandas are cute. Pandas are cuddly. We save the panda. Now, the thing is, you save the panda, you save all the plants that live in the same area that the panda does. So that's how you get people to save plants. You find something cute and cuddly, and you say, we need to save the habitat. And you save everything that goes into that habitat. This is a unique situation. This is the Cafemoron. And this plant was known from one individual specimen. It was actually thought to be extinct. And then a specimen was found. And it never flowered, it never did anything. But they took some cuttings and they sent it to Kew Garden, which happens to be in England. And they learned how to propagate this plant. And now there are 6 specimens that survive in captivity, and there's a small population that survive in the wild because they sent them back to the one island on the one mountain where this plant actually grows. And in the meantime, they learned a lot about it. Take a look. You would not even know that these two plants are exactly the same. The one on the left has these long, stripy, purpley brown leaves. The one on the right with the flowers actually has green, normal-looking leaves. Turns out that ages ago, giant tortoises ate the plant. And so what the plant did was, when it was a juvenile and most susceptible to being eaten, it invented leaves that these tortoises could barely see. When it became an adult, and the leaves, which would be really yummy to these tortoises, were above the area where the tortoises could reach, that's when it had normal looking leaves. And that's the guy who saved it. He was the curator at Kew Gardens. He has made it his life's mission to save really, really rare plants around the world. Now, we do this in the United States as well. So this is one of the largest flowers in the world. It's called Rafflesia. They smell really, really bad, and they happen to be endangered. So how do you save something like this? Is it worth saving something like this? Well, first, to save it, you have to learn a little bit about it. So this is, you'll notice the scientific name is there. This is a quarantined area at the USDA Botanic Gardens. This is kind of behind the scenes area. And the USDA got permission to learn how to germinate the seeds and how to grow the plant and hopefully to be able to propagate the plant. It's actually in a quarantined area, so it doesn't actually escape the lab into the wild, because it turns out this plant is a parasite, and the host plant that it needs is very closely related to grapes. So we have to make sure that this plant doesn't escape, because obviously we have a grape industry in this country, and we don't want that industry being hurt. Is it worth it to save plants? Do our ornamental and crop plants deserve the same treatment as some of these plants that are nearly extinct in the wild? Of course they do. Because what would happen if we lost a plant? What would happen if we lost the ability to grow these annual geraniums, pelargonium, right? Or these cuffias? We wouldn't have them as part of our landscapes. You might think, well, they're just pretty. They may be just pretty, but there's a huge industry in the greenhouse industry involved in growing these plants. So if we save their genetics and some disease or insect comes along to wipe them out, maybe we can rescue that species by utilizing old genetics. This is down in Columbus. So the picture on the left is the seed processing center for germplasm, where they're harvesting seed, cleaning seed, prepping it for storage. The picture on the right is actually growing some of those seeds out. So you can see the little bags in the back here. See these little bags in the back? That's where they're making specific crosses and pollinating those plants to try to harvest the seed so they would have more seed for storage. What about our crop plants? Perhaps it's even more important to save the crop plants, and we do have all kinds of germplasm centers for our crop plants. This one happens to be in Norway, and if something happens, we'll be able to rescue these seeds, hopefully propagate these seeds, and distribute seeds around the world. You'll notice that this one's buried in the ground. The next slide shows this is the entrance to it, buried deep in the snow. And this is what it looks like inside. It's not fancy. It's not pretty. It's just shelf after shelf after shelf, row after row after row of different types of crop plants seeds, so that if something happens, we have that ability to go back and hopefully rescue some of these plants. We do this for our plants as well, not just in Norway and other parts of the world, but this is the National Plant Germplasm Center. This is their website. This is through the USDA. And you can look and see all kinds of different collections and where they're storing things, where the gene bank is. If you'll notice, we have many, many gene banks. And a gene bank is someplace that we can store crops. The whole point for all of this is that if something goes wrong, if we get a disease, maybe we'll be able to utilize some genetics to do some breeding, some hybridizing to help these plants. Okay, as always, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to get in touch.